Hey y'all, I dyed my hair again. I know I said I probably wasn't gonna do that again for a long time, but I did it. I got my hair professionally done this time so that I did not fry it off myself. It looks really orange on camera, but I promise in person it's really not that orange. It's like a honey blonde. It's like a really dark blonde slash really light brown. I can't really tell which one it is, but I really like it. I wanted to go lighter because eventually I want to go back to my natural color, which actually my roots are pretty close to my natural color. Again, it looks really orange on camera, but in person it doesn't look like this. And so the roots are pretty close to my natural color, so as it grows out I won't have to re-dye it a million times, which is like what I wanted. Like, I don't want to dye my hair anymore, which is why I did this. But eventually I want to be able to go lighter on the ends, like the lighter where like the honey blonde is. But she said we'll wait on that because I bleached my whole ass head, and so we're gonna wait a while before we go any lighter so that I don't damage my hair, because my hair is not damaged from this, which I'm so surprised. Like, I'm so fucking shocked because we bleached my whole head. Like, I was there for 10 hours. 10 hours because I have a lot of hair, and it took like 6 hours to bleach my entire head. Like, it was the longest process in the entire world, but it was so worth it. But yeah, I dyed my hair again. I know you're not surprised, but I dyed my hair. But I am back, and today we're going to be reading more about haunted asylums. I wanted to apologize for only uploading one video a week for the last 3 weeks. I don't know what it is, but I'm so fucking tired. Like, I don't know what it is, because I feel fine mentally. Like, I don't feel like it's my depression. And this has happened before where I just feel unbelievably tired, like, all the time. And so it's really hard for me to, like, sit down, get ready, and film videos because I'm just exhausted for no reason. But okay, I've been rambling a lot. Let's get into this. I feel like I haven't had a rambly start to a video in a long time. Feel like a whole new person. And we're gonna scooch you on back so I can lean against my bed. So the first place we're gonna learn about is Royal Hope Hospital. St. Augustine, Florida is the oldest permanent European settlement in the United States. With it comes a long history filled with the struggle and suffering of a developing nation. Many wars left scars on early America, especially in the South. One hospital, called Royal Hope, witnessed some of the worst of it. Originally called Our Lady of Guadalupe, Royal Hope was first opened in St. Augustine as a Spanish military hospital, where it treated the sick and wounded from 1784 to 1821. It burned down but was soon replaced by an exact replica to house the wounded of the Seminole War. I don't know how to say that. Historians say that at least 70% of the men who came to Royal Hope survived the hospital, but given how long it was in operation, thousands found their final resting place there. Today, Royal Hope serves as a Spanish military hospital museum, where visitors can learn more about the war and how the soldiers were treated before modern medicine. However, a discovery by St. Augustine Public Works has left people wondering what was actually going on at Royal Hope all those years ago. Everyone knew that Royal Hope once kept a cemetery where soldiers could receive a proper Catholic burial after succumbing to their wounds. But a few years ago, workers were digging to repair plumbing near the hospital and were surprised to uncover piles and piles of human bones. Most people figured that the historians underestimated just how big the cemetery was. However, the bones themselves suggest a different story. Why were so many bones piled together, without any markers or organization? The discovery appeared unlike a traditional Catholic burial, leaving locals to scratch their heads over what happened to all these people and wonder why their burial was kept a secret. Rumors began to fly that the hospital had been built on an ancient Timucuan Indian burial site. Again, I don't know how to pronounce that. A likely idea considering the area. No one was ever able to confirm this one way or another, as the bones were quickly reburied where they were found, out of respect for the dead. Even if the bones can't speak, the ghosts of Royal Hope sure seem to. As an active museum for the war, people regularly cite strange and unexplainable things that suggest the hospital has its own story to tell. Many visitors to the sick ward have witnessed old beds and furniture moving across the room on their own, sometimes bumping into their legs, as if trying to draw their attention to something. 2 tourists, in particular, spotted what they could only describe as a phantom. They claimed that it appeared in front of them, only long enough to look at their faces before vanishing. Could it have been the sight of a lost soldier? No one can say. Though others have reported strange sightings that suggest that, at least in Royal Hope, the Seminole War was still raging on. Many have heard the distinct sound of marching footsteps coming from the upper floor of the hospital that has been vacant for decades. Anyone who went upstairs to investigate the sounds discovered nothing. More have noticed the distinct and alarming smell of sulfur, as if from gun smoke. Other visitors to the hospital learned more than they bargained for about the despair and suffering that once permeated the building during its long history. Groans and shouts are often heard coming from otherwise empty rooms. The prayer room is particularly well known for these unexplainable noises. As the place where dying soldiers would have received their last rites, it was often a place of ultimate despair. Visitors can still feel it, describing strange feelings of loss and helplessness when entering the room. People often hear pained groans coming from the prayer room, accompanied by hushed prayers of whoever guided the soldiers into the afterlife. Passing away to the sound of soothing prayer may have been the highlight for many soldiers at Royal Hope. The strangled cries of one man can often be heard coming from the old apothecary. People who visit the room have reported seeing distinct shadows moving back and forth as if lost, confused, or trapped. Could they be tortured souls from a disturbed ancient burial ground, unable to find peace in death? Many wonder. Today, the surgeon's office serves as a display room for the outdated and disturbing medical equipment used at the time. The equipment draws a lot of interest, especially because numerous visitors have witnessed it shaking, all on its own. 2 different people have also confessed that they felt someone grabbing them and their clothes, refusing to let go until they managed to rip themselves free. Maybe the doctor's still in. They aren't the only ones who have admitted they were grabbed by some unseen presence. Several others have had scratches to prove it on their stomachs and backs. Some of the scratches even look like they could be attempts at a message, the word help. That might seem a little bit hard to believe, but the abundance of photo and video recordings of spooky, unexplainable apparitions surface from visitors to the hospital every year. Between the mysterious pile of bones and history of needless suffering at Royal Hope, it's no wonder people are witnessing so many confusing and disturbing messages from lives long lost. Whether or not you believe everything people say about the hauntings of Royal Hope Hospital, it's clear that someone on the other side has something to say as well. Okay, and this next hospital is called Metropolitan State Hospital. When Boston's Metropolitan State Hospital opened in 1927, no one had ever seen a psychiatric institution so expansive before. With an administration building, medical and surgical facility, acute and chronic care buildings, psychiatric hospital for children and adolescents, staff housing, morgue, and power plants, the grounds spanned over 3 different towns in the sprawling Boston region. It was made large out of necessity, but just 2 years after opening, the hospital had already exceeded its capacity of just over 1,000 patients. Of course, the hospital had to have its own cemetery to accommodate such an overcrowded facility, but mental hospitals have a patient limit for a reason, and the deaths at the Met appeared to be frequent enough that workers didn't even bother making proper markers for patient graves. By the end of the hospital's operation, the cemetery ended up with 480 anonymous graves, and many more with no marker at all, bodies sunken beneath the ground, their names and stories lost forever. Among the missing are likely the bodies of 24 child patients, buried on the grounds in the early 1960s. Insanity in children had remained the most elusive mental illness for doctors at the time. The story goes that they were given medication, strontium, mixed with their milk as an attempt to quell their unruly behavior. Instead, they were slowly poisoned to death. The overcrowding and underqualified hospital staff at the Met continued to take their toll in later years, though we can't say exactly what Melvin Wilson's motives were when he murdered co-patient Anne Marie Davy. It was 1978 and Davy went missing without a trace. No one knew what to think of it for 2 months until staff found a hatchet and pieces of Davy's clothes with Wilson. Even more disturbing, he had been seen carrying around 7 of Davy's teeth. Because it was pretty clear what had happened, the staff didn't bother to investigate further. It wasn't until state mental health workers filed 19 reports of negligence that Met let the authorities get involved. 2 years after Davy's disappearance, Wilson led investigators to her 3 graves. You see, Wilson had chopped her to pieces and buried her in 3 different places on the hospital grounds. Though after so much time, it was difficult to piece her back together, and rumors still fly that parts of her are still out there, buried in other secret places at the hospital that Wilson didn't bother to tell anyone about. He was later transferred to a more secure facility, and the Met forever wore the new nickname, the Hospital of the 7 Teeth. With such a long and sinister past, it's no wonder that patients and staff alike began reporting unexplainable events even when the Met was operational. The most frequent sightings were strange shadows that seemed to pass through the halls and walls, appearing in locked rooms as if they owned the place, then disappearing into the shadows. Too many times nurses heard what sounded like a patient's desperate screams, only to find no one around. The voice was commonly disembodied, though none of that was as frightening as seeing the figures of long-dead patients appearing in their old rooms. For the workers, it happened frequently enough to make them question their own mental state. One unique feature of the hospital was the maze of underground tunnels. They were originally designed to help people move throughout the hospital during bad weather, though they were often unused. The tunnels were lit by only a few light bulbs placed at a distance throughout the passage. Many staff reported feeling hands grab at their feet, faces, and backs when they walked through the darker areas of the tunnel, but were never able to see anyone there. The feeling of unseen hands frightened workers frequently enough that the tunnels were eventually repurposed for storage. People avoided them after that, though a company of contractors who later had to work in the tunnels mysteriously quit, refusing to go down again and offering no explanation. In 1992, the hospital closed for good. At an alarming rate, it became dilapidated, filled with a maze of rotting wards, mildewed plaster, asbestos, and collapsed ceilings, and waterlogged tunnels. Even after the hospital shut down, the tunnels were filled with all sorts of beds, chairs, and equipment, left dripping and rotting in the echoing darkness. Most upsetting, the tunnels were left filled with patients' belongings, even children's shoes. No one knew why they were down there. Were patients living down there? As the hospital became more sinister looking, residents of the surrounding towns began to take more interest in the strange reports by the staff and patients who used to live there. Despite being barracked off from the public, thrill-seekers frequently began visiting the hospital of the Seven Teeth. It would seem that the spirits were becoming more vocal than before, now that their home had been abandoned. Heavy doors would slam for no reason, and disembodied whispers drifted down the hallway. More than one Boston local admitted that at times it felt as if they were experiencing the actual emotions of some of the long-lost patients. They also developed eerie memories of hospital procedures and practices that they could have never witnessed or known about before. With so many unmarked graves in the cemetery, not to mention Anne Marie Davies' remaining pieces, it's no wonder the grounds are considered more haunted than the building itself. Many people believe the tormented spirits of patients buried in unmarked graves still lurk, lost on the grounds. These believers might be onto something, as just a few years ago more than 15 people called the police for what they described as a woman trespassing near the building, except that she was glowing blue. By the time police arrived, the blue ghost was nowhere to be found, but the 15 witnesses remained adamant in what they saw. She was lurking near the entrance and appeared to be gardening, they said. Since the Metropolitan State Hospital became one of the world's scariest places, people began recording all sorts of disembodied whispers and unexplainable apparitions that are too clear to deny. But the crumbling and rotting hospital made for a sore sight for Boston and the surrounding towns, while the mysterious sightings on the grounds continued to frighten locals and attract ghost hunters. By 2007, the hospital was completely demolished to make room for a complex of condos. It would seem that the eerie sounds, unexplainable sightings, and desperate grabbing from the former residents were at an end. The stories and messages from the hospital of 17th no longer heard. But then again, the cemetery and every unidentified soul within it still linger to tell their tale. That is all I'm going to read for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really want to go to these places. I know that last place you obviously can't go to anymore, but I'm really curious if the condos will be haunted, because it's not like the spirits will just leave when the building's demolished. And so you would assume that the condos would now be like incredibly haunted. Like, I don't know why they would demolish the hospital just to build more shit on top of it. Like, that seems terrifying. But I really want to visit these places. I'm gonna look and see if I can visit any of these places, obviously when like COVID is over. But I like the idea of visiting like old mental hospitals. I don't know why. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm gonna go. I love y'all. I will see you in the next one. Bye! You guys have to see how cute Rumble is. I bought this chair from Home Goods. It's like a little cat chair, and all of my cats like refuse to sit in it for months. I've had this thing for months. But over the last like 2 weeks, Rumble has become obsessed with this chair, and he's just sleeping in it right now. I have to show you. Look at how cute he is. He's just sleeping. Sorry, I woke him up. Look how cute this little chair is. He's just sleeping in it. Oh my god, it's the cutest thing in the world. And it swings back and forth too, and I think he likes it. Also, my pictures are knocked down because my cats. But I'm just so happy that one of them's using it, because I spent like $50 on this chair when I bought it so long ago, and they all hated it for the longest time. Like, when I got Timo when he was like a kitten, I would try to put him in it so I could get him used to it, like as a baby. And he would sit in it for like 2 minutes, but then he would jump out of it. And so now that Rumble uses it on his own, oh my god, he's so cute. Rumble, you're so cute. I love Rumble. He's adorable. But okay, I'm gonna go. See ya.